Welcome to another edition of Egberto Off the Record. This is a program for our paid subscribers. Thank you so kindly for being here. Today, I want to talk about are the Democrats pulling defeat out of something that should be victorious, not for them, but for the American people proper. And I think, based on what I saw on the morning shows today, I'm very, very disappointed in the narrative that they're putting out there. Let me give an example. The Republicans have coalesced onto a talking point. And that talking point is that Democrats have shut down the government, and they've shut down the government in order to give illegal aliens, and by the way, that's their term, I don't use that term, but to give illegal aliens the ability to get health care, and that's not fair to the American worker. And in the process of fighting for health care for illegal aliens, Democrats are simply allowing federal workers to not get paid, even though they promised that when this is over, the federal workers would get paid. At the same time, Donald Trump is threatening the federal workers with not furloughs, but he's threatening the federal workers with termination, firings. I mean, everything that the Republicans are saying should be addressed in simple terms and made easily understood to the American people. One, by law, undocumented immigrants cannot receive Medicare, Medicaid, or any of that sort of help. They cannot receive it, period. And number two, the excuse the loophole that Republicans are using to make that claim, it's because hospitals are compensated for anyone who goes into a hospital in an emergency room and they have to provide services for, because no emergency room is going to let somebody bleed out to death. They don't say, show me your papers before they stop you from bleeding out. They don't. That is inhumane. No other country does that. In fact, Americans who travel all over the world get excellent care where nobody asks them for their papers before they get service. But that simple refuting is what Democrats should do. It takes two sentences. I gave it a little bit more mileage that it deserved, but it takes two sentences to make that point. But immediately thereafter, Democrats should be on the attack, not in a way that says one of the congressmen, the leader of the Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, like to use a phrase where it applies to, or he instead of saying directly what he wants to say, as it pertains to, or he uses that kind of a phraseology. That is not what we need to do as progressives, as Democrats. As progressives and Democrats, Americans need to know that the policy that the Republicans are holding Americans hostage for is simply evil. And again, conservatives are not the most empathetic people. They generally don't care about others unless it directly affects them or directly affects somebody they love who will indirectly affect them. That's the only people that Republicans generally care about. So therefore, what needs to be said is simple. They're taking your health care away, and it's going to cost you a lot more money. Whether you are on the exchanges governed by the Affordable Care Act or not, your health care bill will be skyrocketing because of the policy that the Republicans are implementing right now. And as such, we are protecting you. Ask them directly if the bill is going to go up. And if you want to hear something that they've said, if you want to understand where they're coming from, they really want to kill the Affordable Care Act. No uncertain terms, no care for the people who are on it, even though most of the people on it are Republicans. Most of the people who are on it are MAGA. Most of the people who depend on it are MAGA. The polls are saying even MAGA by a 60% majority wants to hold on to subsidies to ensure they maintain health care. So this is a big winner for Democrats. But if you fight on the turf of Republicans at this point in time, if you allow them to cauterize the message of protecting illegal aliens, they allow that hate vibe, that hate factor within the psyche of MAGA, that hate factor within the psyche of conservatives to temporarily take over. And that temporary takeover allows them to continue doing the evil that they do. So it is important that Democrats stay on message. It is important that progressives stay on message. And the message is we are fighting to protect and to keep your health care and to stop Mr. MAGA, Mr. Conservative, from your health care from skyrocketing. In the case for those who are paying their own health care on the ACA, on the exchanges, we're stopping your care from doubling or sometimes tripling. And for those who are getting employer-based insurance or those who are buying insurance from a broker, we're preventing your rates from going up by a bunch. And you have to hammer that message in and out, in and out. Now, there are a lot of folks now on the left side want to dilute the message in such a manner, or not dilute the message, want to expand the message and talk about what Donald Trump is doing in Portland or Chicago or DC, where he's sending in troops. Yeah, we want to talk about that. But you know what? Everybody else is talking about that, and that's a good thing. Right now, for the shutdown, the messaging for the shutdown needs to be concise. We already know Donald Trump is a thug. We already know Donald Trump is anti-constitutional. We already know that he cares nothing about following what the Constitution is saying. So therefore, we don't need to relitigate that or confuse the message and have several points of messaging in a society that have learned to be most of the time single messaged. We have to keep hammering it. And that is what Republicans have learned long time ago. Notice they stay consistent on a message. When their message is going to be trans, they evolve every message into a trans message. And every time they can use that message, they use it. Because they know many times Americans have a tendency to be singularly focused on an issue. Now, look, progressives are singularly focused on nothing. We as progressives, those of us who are on the left side, we're expansive. We're inclusive. We want to make sure that the full story is known. But we are not fighting just for progressives. We're not fighting just for Democrats. We're fighting for all Americans. And the only way to do that is to meet folks where they are. And that is what we have to do. What I saw on TV today, on not on Face the Nation only, but what I saw today on Meet the Press, what I saw on This Week, what I saw on State of the Union, I saw every Democrat or Democrat pundit allowing Republicans to get a foothold. There was one person that used the term how evil and ungodly the policy that Republicans are putting forth for healthcare is. And that was the only and the most effective statement made all morning on any show for anybody to hear. You associate it with what they claim they are. The conservatives like to claim that they are the party of life, a pro-life party. We have to let it be known that based on actions, not on words, but based on deeds, they are the party of death. Based on deeds, they are the party lacking compassion based on deeds. They are the party anathema to anything being preached by Jesus Christ. For those of you who are religious, I'm not saying you are, but for those of you who believe in this, in religion and the sanctity of life, etc., 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 what they are doing is completely and entirely in opposition to what Jesus Christ stands for or stood for. And that is something that it's important for us to point out in whatever venue that we're in. If we're in a religious setting, we should embarrass them onto the altar. If we're in a sector talking about fiscal responsibility, we should embarrass them into how fiscally irresponsible their budgets are with respect to healthcare. It is important that we keep the message clear, concise, and clean. And that is the way that we win. And you know how I know it? If you take a look, listen to many of the folks that have called into our programs, they've either done it on air or sent emails pointing out that, oh, I didn't quite understand it that way. And the only reason they didn't quite understand it that way is our fault. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. Again, like I said, we have to meet people where they are. We have to meet every single American where they are. And if they grew up with the unempathetic gene that was highlighted by how they were reared by their parents, we have to get through that. If they are from a society that preaches this false, rugged individualism that only applies to the poor and the middle class, as the wealthy continue to succor us all with their socialism, because they get all the subsidies from the government, they get all the kickbacks from the government. If that's who we embarrass them into reality, that is where we need to be. So I think it's important that we get there, folks. I think it's important that we not step back and we do not allow these guys to jam us up. Right now, they're running scared. I listen to them on TV, and now they're begging Democrats to come to the table. And they're pleading, we're just doing what you guys did. We're just saying we gave you a clean CR. Even that messaging that the Republicans are using is false. You go ahead and you change the laws so badly and get it signed into law. And then for the other bad things you want to do, you say, let's keep the government open with a CR. And all that CR does, by the way, CR is a continuing resolution, which allows them to continue doing business at the current rate that they're doing business. But the current rate that they're doing business will include all the bad policies that they passed. So it's not a clean CR. It's a CR that includes all the bad policies they stuffed down our throats. So instead of Democrats pointing that out, it's not a few have. Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, and a few others had. We have to point out it's not a clean CR at all. It is a CR based on the evil implemented post this shutdown, or pre this shutdown is what I should say. So let's get it right, my brothers and sisters. Let's make sure that as you talk about this issue, that we don't get snowed into snatching defeat from victory. We cannot snatch defeat from victory. All right, folks, let me just tell you that I'm going to shut her down. Thank you for being here. And I'll see the whole crew tomorrow at 6 a.m. for those who wake up at 6 a.m. Central. I'll see you in the chat. I'll see you on air, and I'll see you online. Thank you so kindly. And you know how I end this, baby. I am out.
All of of our country's problems, from polarization to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media that too often bend over backwards to support corporate or bought politicians' wants as opposed to the people's needs for real information to make their lives better. Independent media is the only solution to inform truthfully and factually. Why? Because our loyalties are to you, the ones who fund us with small dollar contributions and subscriptions. Please consider supporting our independent media platforms by subscribing to our Egberto Off the Record newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's an investment that pays incalculable dividends.